So the session is being recorded. We ask that you keep your microphones on mute and unless you, until it's time to ask questions. In the meanwhile, you can put your questions into chat. Oops. And we will be checking on those questions in there. And there's closed captioning available for those who would like to turn that on. Today's presentation is called Leveraging OERs to Level the Playing Field. Our co-presenters are Teresa Falk and Amy Hike. And I'd like to introduce them and they can get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We're going to share our screen here.
Audio.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Share.
There we go.
Share.
Perfect.
Oh. Little bit of a technical difficulty. We'll work through this.
We're being cranky.
We promise it was working earlier. I didn't do anything, did I? There we go. Sorry. I can't hear you, but you're not muted. This is how this goes, everybody. We practiced this. I mean, we checked all this right before it started. Everything was working.
How about now?
Yeah, there we go. We can hear you now. We can see your screen. Perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Sorry, everybody.
All right, so my name is Teresa Falk. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services at Wayland Union Schools.
And my name is Amy Hike, and I'm the Media and Technology Consultant for our high school and our middle school at Wayland Union Schools.
So as Stacy mentioned, the presentation that we're doing today is called Leveraging OERs to Level the Playing Field, Michigan Go Open. So we have been involved in the Michigan Go Open initiative for quite a few years. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Michigan initiative through the Michigan Department of Education. We're going to talk about leveraging OERs to level the playing field. And then you're going to hear a little bit of our journey as well. The intended audience for this presentation is K-12 and then OER beginners. So if you are in a place where you feel like this could be a presentation that you could give, you might want to find a session that's a little bit more advanced. But otherwise, we're happy to have you here and excited to share our journey with you.
All right. So open educational resources are licensed, freely available education resources for teaching, learning, and research. And we're going to play this little video about what it is. And if you can't hear the sound, please let us know. We're probably going to have some crankiness. Well, I think we're going to have to pause that.
You don't hear it.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna. I promise we tested everything before.
Right
So we're gonna
really did. We tested it all.
We're just gonna. I think we're gonna skip this one, and we're gonna keep going. So our natural K-12 evolution of OER is, we go from paper, we have our printed worksheets and into our textbooks and then into digital. And, OER really changes the content and delivery, especially the capability. And I think more than ever now, because of COVID and like all of the online platforms that we had to move to, especially in these past couple of years, this is really, I feel like the OER has been very versatile in helping us to adapt and modify and change and really customize for our learning for our students. Anything you wanted to?
Nope, I think on the next slide, we've got some really good examples.
Yeah, so our video, unfortunately, we weren't able to play, but I think this is a really good visual for people. Openly licensed ed resources, the type that, they're going to be free, they're going to be minimal. The license is going to be open license like Creative Commons. You're going to be able to revise it, remix it. There might be some restrictions there, but an example would be the Michigan Open Book Project, which is something that we have going on in our district. And, if you look at the free digital learning resources, they might be free, but there could be some copyright restrictions on those. There might be some limitations there, and it does sort of vary with the different permissions from the creator. So another example of that would be the Smithsonian Education. And then if you look at the textbook and the cost is going to vary, they can be very costly. If anybody has ever had to go through textbook cycles with your curriculum, very much going to be probably restricted with the copyright. And there isn't a lot of flexibility because you have to pretty much use it as it's pertaining to their copyright and their restrictions. So we want to ensure the accessibility and, the 5 sort of R's there with retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute when we're looking at open educational resources there.
So we were going to do a reflection on the video that we had embedded, but because the video didn't work, let's just do a quick like fist of 5. If you are just really getting started with OER, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. If you are an expert and you've been using OER for a while, you have some experience with licensing, all of those pieces, go ahead and give a 5, and then feel free to do anything in the spectrum. So 1, brand new, 5, an expert, and let's just see where we're at in terms of our audience in the chat.
Yeah, perfect.
Very top.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, where did it go? There we go. There we go. Got some screen.
All right, so I'm seeing some 4s, 1s. Okay, some beginners. 1, 1, 2. Perfect. All right, great. So this gives us a starting point and will help us better know what to share and kind of modify our presentation as we go through. So we're going to try this video. It's a really good one, just kind of talking about why you would consider OER and why it's a good source of information and content for students.
We don't like it.
No. Stacy, is there a way that we can share the link to this presentation with everybody who's attending?
Put it on
We
the
can put it, we'll
chat.
put it in the
Put it in
chat.
chat, yeah, so say you could just stick it in the chat.
At the very
Yeah.
end of our session, we will put the whole presentation link in the chat. I'll make sure it's set up there.
Somebody's also suggesting, can you put the link in YouTube and then share your screen that's playing YouTube? Is it a link that's available on YouTube? It is, yeah, now that I look at it. So if you open it in a new tab and then share that tab instead of the screen.
If you're a college student, keep watching.
Oh, there we
My
go.
least favorite.
It might have like some ads now because it's.
Yeah. That was a really great suggestion. Whoever suggested that, let's give it a second to spin. And if it doesn't work, we'll just keep moving.
It's a fellow presenter that suggested that, so in another session. So.
Great suggestion. Gosh, it is really just not loving life.
Maybe it thinks it's Friday.
It is a beautiful fall day, YouTube. Cooperate with us here.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to keep moving, and then, but that was a great suggestion. Thank you. And we'll put the link to the whole presentation in the chat and go from there.
You may have to refresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's skip back forward to where we were at. Okay,
There we go.
so if we're going to summarize what the content of that video was, is why would you use open educational resources? And so we're going to identify a couple of reasons why, as a school district, we opted to choose open educational resources. And this might look a little bit different depending on who you talk to. So our journey actually started, I can't even really remember the school year. I want to say it was 2015, 2016, right around there, maybe even a few years before that. But we were doing some work. We had just went one-to-one iPads in our school district, and our high school social studies department was doing some professional development with Apple on the ability to have the teacher read text aloud and then embed it into iBooks as an accommodation for students with IEPs. So for our teachers who were using iBooks, embedded accommodation with teacher read alouds right embedded. Well, Michelle Rybant, who worked at the Michigan Department of Education at the time, happened to be visiting our district and learned about the work that we were doing, and then connected us to open educational resources. But for us, that was our initial why, is that we wanted to be able to modify resources to provide our students with IEPs and EL students some accommodations. We'll talk a little bit about connections to life experience and how we've done some modifications with OER to make resources more relevant to students. But we can customize experiences. With OER, the resources are flexible and not static. I am a former social studies teacher, and what was frustrating to me is when we moved through the textbook, we would cover all the content in the textbook, but my textbooks were 15 years old. So anything that had happened in the last 15 years, I was still looking for resources for. So moving away from a textbook and using all content that could be modified and flexible just really made sense. We can streamline content delivery. You can use a content management system like Google Classroom or Schoology for organization. OER is free to use. There are minimal costs, but again, we'll talk about a reinvestment process later. Student and educator engagement. It really gives teachers more freedom to design learning experiences for their students and modify. Finding resources that are relevant, interesting, and current to use with students is really powerful. When you get to the point where you're doing really well with implementation, and we started to dabble in this a little bit, students will create OER as part of their learning process. This provides equitable access to resources. It doesn't matter if your foundation allowance is the highest in the state or the lowest in the state. Everybody has access to high quality resources. And then savings can be diverted into teaching and learning. And we'll get into that a little bit more later in the presentation. So all of this work aligns with Michigan's strategic plan. So 2 of Michigan's strategic plan goals, MDE, is for all students to have access to high quality instruction, regardless of their gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, race, economic status, native language, physical, emotional, and cognitive abilities to close the achievement and opportunity gaps that currently exist. So definitely, and I spoke to this on the last slide, all students across the state, across the country, across the world have access to open educational resources to further their learning. So using OER levels the playing field in that way. And then another goal of Michigan MDE strategic plan is for all educators to be encouraged to be creative and innovative. And that's something that using OER definitely fosters for our educators. Again, all educators being adequately compensated and respected for their professionalism and have resources, support, and training needed to educate students. And OER completely aligns with that goal as well. And we'll talk a little bit about how we've diverted funding from textbook purchases and things like that into adequate compensation, professional development, those pieces. All right. So the Go Open initiative started as a US Department of Education initiative and called for states to get involved. So Michigan got involved, I want to say in 2016 in this work as one of the first states. Now, since then, US DOE still has a lot of information on their site about it. They are not the key organization leading the work, but you can still find information on their website. And I believe I have a link here. When I share the presentation, you'll be able to access the resources that they have available. These are some of the key players in Michigan who have been active in the Michigan Department of Education Go Open initiative. Some of these have morphed and changed over the years as organizations have kind of joined the work, left the work, but you can see a lot of resources have been devoted to this initiative at the state level.
So when you look at the Go Open Michigan strategy team, this is kind of the work to date. So we signed up probably 2016 is when we kind of all came together. And with the Michigan Department of Ed, there was a whole bunch of groups. There were some people even that I had seen that are part of like some of the speakers here at these conferences that were part of the work that was done there when we kind of all came together in these different groups and created this Michigan OER microsite. And again, we'll put this link in the chat so you have access to it. But this microsite, the goopenmichigan.org, was just a great way to access OER that had been curated and created, especially lining with Michigan standards. So the creating of the content is still ongoing. The rubrics that we decided to use for this to vet it was the Achieve OER and Equip rubrics that were used to ensure the equality. The professional learning events, the toolkit, all these resources that can really support sort of the process of bringing this to your school or kind of rolling it out can be also found on that microsite or on the Michigan Go Open Michigan.org. And there are grants through the MDE, which Teresa will be talking about a little bit later when we get down into that end of the presentation. So this is just a snapshot of what that microsite looks like. And so when you go to Go Open Michigan, you would land on the site and it basically allows for you to look for content in different ways. It might be by subject, it might be by grade level. You can even search by standard. And then what it will do is go ahead and pull up OER resources that are available according to the filters that you're using and what you're looking for. And these are just another snapshot of that site. Some of the featured topics are there. The My Open books are there, and those are great resources for social studies. You can see the computer science. You can see all of like the code.org. There's just a lot of different feature topics and topics there that are large chunks of almost like curriculum that you can find, as well as like smaller pieces for individual lessons.
All right, so we're going to use the chat again, just so that we're not talking at you this whole time. And just wondering, what are your needs? What drew you to come to this session? Are you looking to replace an entire textbook? Are you looking for supplemental materials? Is there a specific unit that, is not the strongest in your current resources? Have you identified curriculum gaps? What are your needs when it comes to OER? And we're going to look in the chat here and see what everybody has to say. So we got somebody looking the entire book needing to replace. Entire books. Specific units.
Entire course material.
Yep, supplemental for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Course materials.
Yeah, so as they're kind of coming in, the great thing about that site is you really can look for whole units of study or individual lessons, which makes it kind of a nice site to be able to really hone in on specifics of what you need.
Somebody working with pre-service education students and wanting to prepare them to be able to use OER when they get into the classroom, no matter which district they end up in. Thank you. Thank you for that work. We appreciate that. Oh, incarcerated students. Yes, absolutely. I can see this being great resources. All right, well, perfect. Well, thank you so much. As we move through the next few slides, we'll try to make some connections to some of the things you're looking for so that we can help you with that. And we do have already some resources embedded in the presentation to help point you in the right direction. All right, this is actually a really great place to start. This is a snippet that we took from the US DOE website, and it really gives you a starting point based on where you're at. So if you are due for a full curriculum renewal, it will give you step by step how you might enter this OER world. If your curriculum is lacking, it gives you some steps there of things you might consider when you're looking to begin OER. And if there's some teacher leadership and teachers who are interested in moving more toward OER, there's a pathway there as well. So just depending on what your needs are in your school district or in your educational environment, there are resources on that US DOE website to help provide you with some guidance on where to get started. So these are just some examples of OER. We literally could probably do a 3-hour presentation at least on doing a deep dive into some of these, but these are some of our favorites and some of the things that we got started using. So Amy had mentioned earlier, we use the Michigan Open Book Project for our social studies work for K-12. We have some high school teachers who have provided some courses and content through Merlot. And then CK12, open courses, some textbooks that we've used in the past. The others, besides Khan Academy, we're not as familiar with, but we have kind of a partner school district on the other side of the state who has done some of this work with us, Marysville, that have used some of these other resources as well. So we're going to transition now to a little bit of our story and sharing with you some of our perspective on our OER process and journey in our district. So definitely some good things with using OER. Ownership from staff and students, our teachers who have really invested into building their own classes and integrating open educational resources. The ownership they have over their content area and instruction is just incredible. You can see their passion coming through in what they're teaching because they've had a hand in designing it. Student voice and choice, we're going to show you in a few minutes an example of a menu that a teacher created, and that menu provides some student voice and choice, which has led to greater engagement and conversations from students. A deeper focus on standards. We all know that when we're purchasing those textbooks, they are a mile wide and an inch deep. We are really able to find resources that meet standards. I talked about this a little bit with the first bullet point, but teacher motivation, when your teachers know that you trust them to design their courses, choose their own resources, like the motivation for them to continue to be innovative increases. An investment in teachers, I think I go into this a little bit further in the other slides, but through the Michigan Department of Education grant that Amy talked about a couple slides ago, we were able to go and visit a school district in Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania. They are one of the leaders in the country of OER usage. They've designed entire classes, K-12, all around OER. We were able to do that. We took a group of teachers, which was a great experience for them. But then another part of that grant, along with other grants that we've used through the years, and I do have a slide on that, has allowed us to take the money that we would have typically spent on textbooks and then compensate our teachers for curating and creating OER. So we do have a slide later, and I think it specifically says free like a puppy. OER is free like a puppy. Like the puppy itself is free, but you have to do the shots and take it to the vet and feed it and all those things. OER is the same thing. Like if you're doing it and doing it well, it's not that you're not going to spend the money that you were spending on textbooks. You'll just spend it differently. And then teachers as designers of learning. And I've talked about that. We're going to check the chat here real quick.
Okay, where is it?
Oh, yep, Khan Academy, open textbook, perfect, excellent. All right, so the bad. So not all of our teachers have been super excited about jumping on board with OER. There definitely is a you get what you pay for mentality with some teachers. They're just nervous about the quality of free resources. It's not a package. So one of the hardest parts, especially at the elementary, that we've had to overcome is that when you're using OER, very rarely are you getting every single component. We all know as teachers, I remember I taught 4th grade for a while, and you get the brand new textbook series and you open up the plastic and you smell the new books, and there's the books and then the assessments and the consumables and intervention and enrichment all in one nice, neat package for you. But I also remember as a teacher not using half that stuff. So OER is not that complete package. You will have to supplement maybe from a variety of places and resources, and sometimes that's a struggle. Some other things that are the bad is just the abundance of OER. There's so much out there that sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming and vetting becomes difficult. That's why we suggest starting with the Michigan Go Open page. That's all been vetted by Michigan educators, so we know that it's high quality and aligned with Michigan standards. Okay, and then the unexpected. So lack of teacher confidence. Teachers have been being beat up for a while. So feeling like they don't have the knowledge and skills to create courses and create content for their courses. The whole idea that your materials are not your curriculum. As educators, we don't start day 1, chapter 1, and end the school year on chapter 20 and go cover to cover in a book. Our materials are not our curriculum. It's a huge time investment. I should change that from requirement to investment, which is why it's really taken off more for us at middle school, high school than it has at elementary, where our teachers are teaching every subject. Our teachers who are at secondary have that opportunity to specialize. And then teacher empowerment. Like I said before, our teachers who have really taken to this feel empowered and feel in control of their classes. Some things to be aware of as you go down this route, district policies. So K-12 schools usually either use Troon or Neola for policies. So if you use either one of those organizations to create your district policies, they'll have some of this created for you, but really clearly defining that anything that teachers create, who owns that? If you have a teacher who creates their whole class out of OER and then they leave, where does that content belong? Who owns that? really doing some instruction for our teachers around Creative Commons licensing and how that works. And then of course, how does board approval for curriculum work with all of this? Are your school boards approving things at the unit level, at the course level? So just something to pay attention to, and that varies district by district. All right, we're gonna switch over to Amy here.
Yeah, so one of the things that you want to do kind of leading into that is making sure that you're compliant with anything that you're posting, especially. So Americans Disability Act compliance when creating, sharing, especially digital resources, all contents posted to district websites must be compliant. And again, we'll put the link in the chat there and on the sketch, but the link there will take you to some training materials that would be very helpful for any Michigan educators, that sort of like the toolkit to get started with the OER. But, you know, we live in a digital world and we need to make sure that anything that we're posting has sort of those, you know, the copyright is sort of there and aware, so we know what's what, and making sure that we're compliant with all the things that we're posting. And I think we're going to get into Free Like a Puppy.
Yeah, so I jumped ahead a little bit on this slide, but OER, free like a puppy. So you're not going to stop spending the money that you spent on textbooks, but you're going to reinvest. So professional development for teachers, that compensation for curation, modification, and creation. And then of course, a big one that I didn't mention the first time around is technology for delivery. So what really propelled us into this OER world was our district one-to-one iPad initiative. All of our students, young 5s through 12th grade, have Apple iPads, so that really gets the content right in their hands. I don't know that we would be as successful with this as we are without those devices. So definitely has helped.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked about leveraging funds. So Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, the MDE OER grant. We've used a variety of sources to help support this work, to really create and curate resources to meet the needs of our students. So it's okay to get creative, work with your Office of Field Service consultant, and they can help with some creative thinking around this to meet all of the requirements of these grants, but also meet the needs of your school or school district.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what it looks like in Wayland right now with our OER. And in elementary, our real focus is probably the Michigan Open Book Project. And kind of like what Teresa had said before, our elementary teachers have a lot of subjects that they're, you know, spending their time with. So they can't necessarily devote the same amount of time that our secondary staff would when you're sort of focused in on 1 or 2 subjects. So in our elementary here, pretty much K through 5th is going to be our Michigan Open Book Project, social studies. In our middle school, we've got Giants, social studies. We've got Michigan Open Book Project again. We've got some MyStar for our science and Open Up resources for math. Khan Academy for some supplemental. And then just last year before, our English moved to Common Lit 360. And that has been pretty awesome, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We're really liking it. Our high school open, it is, sorry, I'm just moving some things out of here. Open Up resources with math, our Michigan Open Book Project again for social studies, Khan Academy, especially when we're looking at any of our work with SAT prep. Teacher created OER, our Creative Commons too is where we kind of supplement a little bit. Unsplash is always a hit because there's just some really great things there for any type of multimedia presentations. And then our CK12 textbooks to also supplement some of those classes that aren't necessarily core, but are electives. And so here's some examples of our Wayland OER, and this is our math department. They do what's called a menu, and I don't know if it's gonna come up or not. We're gonna try this. Should still be able to see this. So this is kind of what it looks like for their menu. They sort of have these different layers, and then students can pick from these different layers. And voice and choice is definitely a great thing that sort of blends well with OER.
Stacy, you unmuted. Are you able to see this?
No, we're not. We can't see it. Yeah.
Let me stop and then
try.
reshare,
Reshare.
because this is definitely worth sharing.
How
Okay,
about now?
how about that?
We can see it now. Thank you.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, so we have, which is kind of great because we have different things that are coded there to kind of let you see. The purple is going to be anything that is OER, anything in green is going to be free resources, and then anything that is yellow is copyrighted and probably came from a textbook. And so it's sort of a mix, mash, and blend, but we found that that's kind of how it works best, to make sure that our students are getting well-rounded in everything that they need, and just using as many resources as it takes. But this is, I think, probably one of our better examples of how we've blended in OER in our district, kind of seamlessly with some of our other resources that we have.
I'll stop share and reshare.
And I think we're back. Yeah. Perfect. Did it go?
I don't think so. Let me click here.
Maybe refresh. Sorry, we're having a little bit of difficulty.
There we go.
I think we're,
How much I have to go?
let's go down to 30. We believe in you, little Mac. There we go. So here's just some different things that our students have said. And this has been, like I said, a journey that we've been on, I feel like we really kind of hit it that I feel like 17, 18 is when we hit our stride. But you can just kind of see some of the comments there and some of the pictures there, and the students that have created some of their own work, which has been really exciting to see, our own students creating some OER resources. That's been a really great thing to see. Again, just some more fun ways that students have personalized their learning and demonstrate their learning through mathematics, and students that are in the store. I like that one too. If you get a chance to watch that one, and literally thinking outside the box.
This was a really cool project. It was part of one of those menus, again, where the teacher used a combination of copywritten traditional materials and OER to teach this lesson. And the kids had to compare. I'm a former math and social studies teacher, which is a weird combination, but that's where I ended up. Did a lab where they designed different cereal boxes, so comparing surface area and volume. And it was just a great hands-on experience. As a former math teacher, that was always something that was difficult to teach, but these kids got it and understood it. They went to our local grocery store in town and were talking to some of the people who were just shopping on a random day of the week about different designs for cereal boxes and how much cereal boxes could hold. And it was just a really great way to get our kids out in the community, talking with community members about what they were learning in school. And it was a result of mashing multiple resources together to customize, what they needed for their learning. So I'll talk a little bit about the data, and we don't need to go into too much, what COVID has done to all of our data. But prior to COVID, we were really seeing a nice increase in our MSTEP scores by kind of throwing out the need to be married to textbooks and allowing our teachers to go out and find and use resources that were specifically aligned to the standards to meet the needs of our kids. So for us, all subjects, all grade levels for MSTEP were consistently above the state average. We really saw some great jumps in social studies, specifically at 8th grade and 11th grade. Again, we could talk a little bit about what happened during the pandemic, but I feel like we're all in the same boat there. But I'm really seeing some great results prior to COVID on that. I will say that when we transitioned to online learning with COVID, our teachers who were kind of early adopters of OER, were in the best position to pick up and continue with online instruction because they were used to having those materials, and it didn't take a lot for them to kind of pivot and move online. So that was one unintended benefit that we saw during the pandemic of using OER. All right. So if you want to get involved,
Yeah.
you know, obviously there's information on the US Department of Education website. If you're interested in the Michigan Go Open initiative, I think that I saw some of the MDE OER crew in the session. Hi, everybody. But feel free to contact us, reach out to us if you're interested in getting involved, and we can connect you with the right people there. It's, you know, a fun project to be part of and hear and learn more as we go throughout. Michigan is going to open another series of OER grants, I believe, here. So we're excited to continue our learning there. We're going to take a quick peek at the chat, make sure we've got questions here.
You have a question further up about from Rachel Becker about how does using the rubrics help or hinder OER adoption among teachers?
Sure. So really what that menu is kind of the combination of multiple resources. So we have not made a statement saying thou shalt use OER. We have teachers who are using their traditional textbook, using OER to supplement all of those pieces. So it's really given our teachers some freedom to use the resources that we have as they see fit. Of course, we have traditional textbooks still. We have certain curricular materials that we subscribe to, and we use OER. So a combination of those three kind of buckets of resources help us to really meet the needs of our students.
360 for microsite. ISKME.
We did not access it through ISKME.
The 360. The question was interested in Common Lit 360. And yeah, so we've used that. I think we piloted it last year.
And then this year is the first year we formally adopted it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of great things there. It works really well with Google Classroom. It works really well with CERs. I mean, it's good stuff.
If you're interested, our email addresses are at this end of this presentation, and I can connect you. 2 of our middle school language arts teachers who were really the leaders in the adoption of that are the ones that were involved in the OER grant and the OER visit that we went on. And I'm happy to connect you with them so that they can provide you with some feedback on their learning too.
Great, thank you. Our
No problem.
teachers have been asking for it.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, Common Lit 360 is out there. There's the assessment package. The assessment package you have to pay a subscription for, but the actual content is available as OER.
Yeah, and you should be able to just go in and create an account. I know I was able to when we were first piloting it. So if you wanted to preview materials, especially at the different grade levels, you should be able to go right in, create an account, preview all that. It's really just the assessment pieces that you would have to pay for if you wanted those.
I'm going to stop sharing because I want to grab the link for our presentation and throw it in the chat for everybody.
I'll just say thank you all for your presentation and your wealth of knowledge. And it sounds like you're really well versed and you have a lot of experience in a school environment that's really put time and effort into that, which is fantastic. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments for our presenters? This is being recorded. I do not have a date as to when the recording will be available because of course that takes some time and that none of us seem to have an extra of, but to get it up and available. So there's the presentation link. You all can see it in the chat.
And thank you so much for being patient with our technology glitches. I don't think Amy or I are used to technology glitches, so this was a little bit out of our norm.
So we didn't have any in the when we were warming up.
We
Somebody You were also asked that, or I also like math menu. Is that available for review? Do you
It
know
is. So
anything about that?
within the presentation is that embedded link, and we have that open for everybody to see and be able to look at.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? You have, like I said, you'll have the recording, you have email addresses, and you have the whole presentation. So well, thanks everybody for attending. Thank you again to Amy and Teresa for their presentation. I hope everybody comes back tomorrow. We should have technology glitch free. I think we've worked everything out, and we look forward to tomorrow. We have another keynote speaker in the morning. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. So we end with you. There's no,
Yeah, it's 3 is the end, or this was the last session, and the next
Okay.
sessions are tomorrow morning at 10 is when the keynote is.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you for
great.
coming.
Certainly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.